Hello, everyone. In today's session, we will be dealing with the applied aspects of the thyroid hormone. With this, we will complete all the things related with the thyroid hormones. So let's begin with the hypo and hypersecretion of thyroid hormones. So in today's class, under the competency of 8.2, as you know, we are following the CBME curriculum as per the competencies and the objectives. So today's objectives under the thyroid gland are, by the end of this class, the student should be able to discuss the clinical features with pathophysiological basis for each of them. That is, first we will learn about goiter, then myxedema, cretinism, and hyperthyroidism. Lastly, we'll also be learning to list the anti-thyroid drugs and the site of their action. So this is our objective for today's session. Let's begin with goiter. So as you can see in this diagram, goiter is nothing but an enlargement in the neck. It is found as an enlargement in the neck. So a normal thyroid gland with the normal proportions will not be actually visible at the neck. When it is enlarged, it will be found as a neck swelling. So goiter can be defined as any enlargement of the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland's functional aspects are not known here. So that means goiter does not indicate the functional state of the thyroid gland. The enlarged goiter, the thyroid gland does not indicate whether it is hypo, hyper, or euthyroid. So when we use the word goiter, we have to be careful. We simply mean it's an enlarged thyroid gland. We don't mean whether it is hypo or hyperthyroid as the functional state. It's just an enlargement of the thyroid gland. So coming to the types of the goiter, so this may be just simply where in this diagram what we can see, it is hardly visible, hardly noticeable that there is an enlargement. It can be so small or it can be this large. So these types of enlarged thyroid gland were seen many years ago, 40 to 50 years ago probably, where iodine was not used, iodized salt was not used, and iodine deficiency gave rise to such huge goiters. Some people started believing that it looks beautiful to have those kind of enlargement in certain African people. Okay, so coming to the types of goiter, we can classify them as simple, toxic, neoplastic. Neoplastic means there is a tumor or a cancerous thing, or thyroiditis means there is an infective origin. So you don't have to learn very much in detail of these types. Just to know the names is sufficient. So it could be a simple goiter, toxic goiter, neoplastic goiter, thyroiditis. So simple goiter is the commonest, and that kind of a goiter is caused by the substances called as goitrogens. Okay, a simple goiter is the commonest goiter caused by goitrogens. Now let's try to find out what is a goitrogen. What do we mean by that? So goitrogen are substances which block one or more reactions in the synthesis of thyroid hormones. So they are creating certain blocks in the synthesis, and hence there is decreased thyroid hormone secretion. So any substance which blocks the synthesis of thyroid hormone are called as goitrogens. So what is the pathophysiology? What is the relation of presence of a goiter or an enlarged thyroid to this means? So whenever, what already we defined what is a goitrogen, that means it is any substance which will bring a block in the formation of the thyroid hormones. So ultimately, the thyroid hormones are deficient. Okay? So you know this pathway of feedback inhibition, negative feedback inhibition. Normally, the hypothalamus produces TRH, thyroxine releasing hormone, on anterior pituitary. this produces TSH, and this TSH acts on thyroid to produce the hormones. Now we know that the T3 and T4 are insufficient. If normally they reach the normal level, they are inhibiting the hypothalamus. They are inhibiting the anterior pituitary. Now what's happening? The T3, T4 are less, so there is no inhibition. So there is excess of TRHs that is formed, excess of TSH. And the job of TSH is to stimulate the thyroid gland. So it will increase the size of the gland. As and when the T3, T4 levels fall, it is trying more and more to stimulate the thyroid gland to produce the T3, T4. But due to some blockage, it is actually not able to produce. So which are these goitrogens which can result in the decreased formation of T3, T4? First and foremost is the iodine deficiency. So whenever there is an iodine deficiency, adequate amount of T3, T4 is not formed. On the contrary, as we told, excess of iodide, both iodine deficiency and excess iodide, both are blocking the thyroid hormone synthesis. Next, a group of vegetables, what we call it as Brachyacea family, they which include cabbage and cauliflower and such vegetables, they are also having certain goitrogenic substance within them, which can reduce the T3, T4 levels. So this is the pathophysiology. Let us have a look at one more diagram to understand a little better. So if either there is iodine deficiency, endemic means in certain places there is deficiency in the water, in the salt, everywhere, and hence there is more occurrence of this iodine deficiency. So either there is iodine deficiency or there may be increased demand, sudden increased demand as it occurs in puberty, pregnancy, and during lactation. These are also times when a goiter can appear at puberty, pregnancy, and lactogen, or due to excess consumption of goitrogenic substances like the vegetables. So all this can lead to decreased T3, T4 formation, which will cause increased TSH. So that will cause hyperplastic goiter, excess stimulation of the thyroid gland, and resulting in the formation of a goiter, which can become of different varieties, maybe a colloid goiter, multinodular goiter. You need not bother. So it can remain asymptomatic, or there may be pressure effects because such a huge goiter, enlarged gland is there. It may press on the windpipe, the pharynx, the larynx, and hence there may be problem felt as dyspnea, difficulty in breathing, or dysphagia, difficulty in swallowing, or hoarseness of voice due to it pressing over the vocal cords. Or there can be toxic change in the goiter, or it may even get converted into malignancy. So this is how the goiter can have different effects. Now we'll move on to the next aspect, that is the based on the functional aspect, whether it is hypo or hyperthyroid, when the disorders of thyroid function based on its functionality. So we will learn about goiter, we learned. Then cretinism, we have a picture of myxedema here. We have a hyperthyroid picture here. Let's see what all this means before we decipher what are all this. So first is the hypothyroidism. So as the name suggests, it is decreased circulating T3, T4 levels is called hypothyroidism. First among them is cretinism. That is hypothyroid condition in newborns, infants, or children is known as cretinism. Whereas myxedema is the name given to the hypothyroid condition in adults. Next, coming to the hyperthyroidism, increased circulating T3 or T4 levels. So these are the basic names you need to remember. Among the hyperthyroidism, we will learn more about what is called Graves' disease or thyrotoxicosis. Here we are using the word under hyperthyroidism, Graves' disease and thyrotoxicosis. But as you learn further, you will later realize that hyperthyroidism and Graves' disease are not synonyms. They do not mean one for the other. They are little different, but here under physiology, we will learn that under hyperthyroidism, the Graves' disease. So we need to remember the basic things. Cretinism means hypothyroid condition in newborns, infants, or children. Myxedema, hypothyroid in adults, whereas in hyperthyroidism, we call it as Graves' disease or thyrotoxicosis. So let's begin with the myxedema. So myxedema is the clinical condition due to decreased thyroid hormones in adults. So the types and causes, there are two types based on where's the underlying pathology. So first one is primary hypothyroidism. So whenever we use the word primary, you might have also heard this primary hypertension. So what do we mean by primary here? The problem lies in that particular organ itself. Okay, primary hypothyroidism means the deficiency of thyroid hormones is due to deficient formation. The normal TRH level is there, normal TSH levels are there, iodine is available, everything is available, but the thyroid gland is not able to produce T3, T4. Then we use the word primary hypothyroidism. Whereas secondary hypothyroidism is word that we use when the problem lies elsewhere. Maybe there is decreased TRH, that is, there is pituitary failure, or there is decreased TSH. Okay, hypothalamic or pituitary failure. That is secondary hypothyroidism. So this is it. Primary, what is saying? Thyroid gland not making enough thyroid hormone. Okay. Secondary, the stimulations is less. So let's also try to understand what will be the thyroid function test in primary hypothyroidism and secondary hypothyroidism. Okay. See this first panel here, that is the primary hypothyroidism. What did we say? The problem lies in the thyroid gland. So the first here is the TSH level, the next is the free T4 level. Okay. So to the T3 or T4 level. This could be T3 or T4 level. So it is low. Okay, so to begin with, there is a problem in the thyroid gland. T3, T4 is low. Because it is low, it will try to, the TSH is trying to somehow increase this T4 level. So it elevates. TSH levels is elevated and it is giving more and more stimulation so that adequate amount of T3 and T4 can be formed. But it's not happening. Okay, because there is a problem in the thyroid gland itself. So in primary hypothyroidism, what do we find? I hope you recall that I asked you to take somebody's, your relatives or someone who has undergone a thyroid function test recently to and look into the TSH and T3, T4 values so that you understand. So now you can understand. If you go back and try to check any of their values, you will find that if T3, T4 is low, but TSH is high, that means it is primary hypothyroidism. Okay. Let's see what are all the causes for this primary hypothyroidism. So it could be due to iodine deficiency. There is a condition called Hashimoto's disease, that is autoimmune disorder. Okay, there is an autoimmune disorder. So against the thyroid gland itself, so it is not able to produce the hormones. The third thing that can happen is treatment of hyperthyroidism. Okay, so to begin with, the person is having hyperthyroidism. That means too much of T3, T4 is there. To treat that, we give radioactive iodine to destroy that. Okay, so while doing that, if we overdo the treatment for hyperthyroidism, the person may end up with too less T3, T4 levels and ending up in myxedema. Okay, so the person was initially hyperthyroid, the treatment was excessive and ends up having myxedema. Okay, so that is the primary hypothyroidism. Next coming to, we will not discuss the subclinical hypothyroidism. We will go to secondary hypothyroidism. Okay. So here you can see that the problem lies in the TSH level. This will normally be low. Okay. It will be low. The TSH level will be low and hence there is not enough stimulation, and T4, T3 levels will also be low. So if both are low, it is secondary hypothyroidism. If TSH is elevated and T4 is low, it is primary hypothyroidism. So next, moving on to the features of myxedema. So if there is hypothyroidism, already I hope you can recall that thyroid hormone was a hormone which is very, very important, virtually having its effect on every organ system and every cell in the body. So definitely if there is a deficiency, it is going to affect a wide number of functions and also have a lot of uh, problems. Okay, so coming to the clinical features of myxedema. First thing, there may be a goiter. Okay, compensatory. Already there is a decreased T3, T4 level. TSH trying to stimulate somehow. So there is a compensatory hypertrophy. So there is a goiter always, most of the time. Okay, myxedema. Second, obesity, weight gain is there because there, as you know, their basal metabolic rate, the thyroid hormones are important for increasing the basal metabolic rate and also the oxygen consumption, and hence they are thermogenic. They spend energy. Whenever thyroid hormones are there, they spend energy. So in the deficiency, it causes obesity and weight gain. Okay. In addition, you know, on the GIT, it was promoting GI motility. So when there is deficiency, there is constipation. Okay. Coming to the third one, there is puffy face, large tongue. This is the facial description of a person with myxedema. Puffy face, large tongue, and periorbital edema. Let's see a diagram and understand this. Okay, so this is a person having puffy face. Okay, there is a lot of fluid retention sort of thing. All that is because of the myxedematous look, we say. Why it is happening? Because of the accumulation of the chondroitin sulfate and all the mucopolysaccharides, everything under the skin. And I hope you can recall from the function, if it is normal hydration for all those things for the skin, thyroid hormones were essential. So in the absence of that, you will find a puffy face in the periorbital region. More of these substances are uh, accumulated, and hence they give this periorbital. You can see here very clearly. Okay, there is a periorbital edema. In addition, there is a large tongue. So these are all the substances which are accumulated there: mucopolysaccharides, hyaluronic acid, and chondroitin sulfate. A similar accumulation also happens around the tibial bone. Okay, what we call pre-tibial myxedema or tibial accumulation. Okay, so there is mucin deposits here. So this, if we examine, we find it as a non-pitting edema. So first of all, what do we mean by edema? Edema is a condition that occurs due to excess ECF volume, extracellular volume in the body. So there is more accumulation of ECF. But in addition, there is not only the fluid, these are all these substances are accumulated. So it will be non-pitting. What we mean by the word non-pitting is when we press upon the edema, it will not make the impression. So there is a non-pitting edema due to accumulation of myxomatous tissue in skin and other tissues. So these are some of the features: goiter, obesity, puffy face, this kind of a feature you should remember. Then non-pitting edema, many more are there, we will see. There is a hoarseness of voice. We saw there is a enlargement of the tongue. So due to myxomatous tissue in the vocal cord, it will cause hoarseness of voice. This is also known as a disease which can be diagnosed on telephone, because the hoarseness is very typical that is there in myxedema. So a disease which can be diagnosed on telephone, this quality. So next, coming to some metabolisms. So you remember that thyroid hormone on carbohydrate, it all causes both the effects, hypoglycemia as well as hyperglycemia. But here there is more of hypoglycemia now in myxedema. Hyperglycemic effect is absent because in deficiency, hyperglycemic effect is in coordination with catecholamines. Okay. So when T3, T4 are deficient, their hyperglycemic effect is absent. Okay. And the catecholamines normally in addition also cause the glycogenolysis in presence of T3, T4 and the gluconeogenesis. Okay. So all these effects are absent in the absence of T3, T4 because it is should give a permissive effect for the catecholamines to do this function. So ultimately in myxedema, there will be hypoglycemia, low blood glucose levels. Coming to the lipids, you knew that there was a special function of the thyroid hormone, which was lowering the cholesterol effect, lowering the serum cholesterol levels. But here, because of the deficiency, we have high cholesterol level because synthesis continues, but removal does not happen due to deficiency of T3, T4. So there is high cholesterol level. Somnolence means feeling sleepy and tired due to low energy levels. The person feels very lethargic. Okay. For hypo, it is lethargic. The person is already overweight and the person is also lethargic. Next feature in myxedema is prolonged reflex time. Okay. When we try to elicit the reflexes, we find that the reaction time is more. We will see a diagram at the later stage where how to remember. Either you remember organ wise, on each organ, what does it do? On CNS, what does it do? On metabolisms, what does it do? On the heart rate. So like that you can remember, or you can remember from head to toe. Okay, both options are there. For every disease, for every hormone, we have a hyposecretion, hypersecretion, some features or some disease which is causing. And normally as we read more and more, you tend to get confused. So please make a tabular column and put up all the hormones on one side, one below the other on the left side, and what is its chemical composition, some small functions, and then hypo, what it happens, hyper, what it happens, and have a very big chart with you, which will make reading endocrine very easy and very quick. Okay, otherwise, definitely you are going to get confused between one and the other because you have not seen the patient. As you go on further, it is not going to happen. But now that you have not seen a patient with your own eyes, it is likely to happen that you get confused with the symptoms and the features. Okay, so moving on, I told you that the myxedema has lower reflex time, prolonged reflex time. Next is intolerance to cold due to decreased production of heat. So T3, T4 hormones actually increase the they are calorigenic, they increase the body temperature. In its absence, there is lowering of the body temperature already, and hence we are intolerant to cold. Then there is low BMR, decreased oxygen consumption. Next, the reproductive system is totally affected in both males and females. Female have abnormal menstrual cycles and usually there is menorrhagia. Okay, in hypo, that is myxedema, there is menorrhagia. In males, there is decreased sperm count, and in both, there is loss of libido or sexual desire. Lastly, the myxedema has immense effect because the thyroid hormones are very essential in the normal CNS functioning, in the synapses, in the myelination, and many other processes in the CNS. Deficiency causes slow mentation, and ultimately, when it is severe, it can cause psychosis called as myxedema madness. So these are some of the features of myxedema. I know they are a long list. Let's try to remember with this diagram once again. Okay, so these silly type of diagrams you should draw. Literally, you should draw and try to recall and remember these diagrams so that you remember we drew one diagram for acromegaly, prognatism, and all that. So the more the diagrams are there, it is more easy to recall all the features. Okay, so beginning from head and toe, we will go very quickly because it's a repetition, the same thing in a different way. Okay, coming to the brain, there is slow mentation, and there can be psychosis at the last higher end. There can lead to psychosis. The hair are dry, the skin is coarse, thick. Then there is periorbital edema, what we call it as myxedemic phase. Okay, puffy phase. There is a goiter. Then there is diminished sweating. Okay, because it causes thyroid hormones cause hydration of the skin. When there is no, it's not there, it diminished sweating. In the heart, there can be ECG changes and there can be bradycardia. There can be ischemic heart disease also. Then weight gain is there, menstrual irregularities, there is menorrhagia, constipation on the GIT, then there is muscle weakness. Yeah, this I think I forgot to tell. Muscle weakness is basically because what we said is thyroid hormone normally is anabolic, but when this is not there, it is causing muscle weakness called myxedemic weakness. Then the skin is dry, cold, and prone to hypothermia. Then there can be this non-pitting edema. So these are some of the features which you can remember from head to toe. So coming to the treatment of myxedema. So the medication, when there is no thyroid hormone, the only way is to replace it with the analog of thyroxine, that is levothyroxine, prescribed in low dosage around 30 to 50 milligram until hormone levels stabilize in the normal range. Okay, repeatedly TSH and T3, T4 levels have to be evaluated until we reach to the proper range of each of them. So a complication of myxedema is known by the name myxedema coma. So I was telling you T3, T4 is an essential hormone for life. So if it is totally deficient, it can lead to death. So myxedema is coma is such a condition, a medical emergency. That is the patient who is a known hypothyroid suddenly becoming very lethargic, depressed, and consciousness is lost. There is hypothermia, body temperature becomes very less than 25 degree. It has to be very quickly identified and treated immediately, otherwise it can be catastrophic. So this is one of the complication of myxedema. So now we have completed goiter and hypothyroidism in adult, that is myxedema. Now let's move to the hypothyroidism in children, that is known as cretinism. Okay, so a clinical condition caused due to decreased thyroid hormones in newborn infants or children. What are the causes? The causes: congenital absence of the gland. Second, iodine deficiency in mother during pregnancy, or administration of antithyroid drugs during pregnancy. So if the mother suffered from hyperthyroidism, thyrotoxicosis, and some antithyroid drug was given, that will act on the child, and the child may present with cretinism. Okay, so these are the causes of cretinism. So as I was telling you that thyroid hormones are essential hormones that are required from in utero for the growth and development of the fetus. So if there is a deficiency in that state, the problem begins there itself. Okay, let's learn from that place. So immediately after birth, what could be the ways in which hypothyroidism can present is, in the first stage, you know that in the early days of the birth, there is a physiological jaundice, okay, where the bilirubin levels are little high. But if this persists for a longer period in hypothyroidism, there is difficulty in feeding. Baby is not able to feed. There is somnolence. That means the baby is lethargic and sleeping all the time, not even waking up for the food. It so happens that it may become hypoglycemic, but still it is not waking up. Okay. So excess sleeping. Of course, babies sleep for 20 hours in the 24 hours a day, but they then they don't even wake up for food, for milk. That is when we call it as this excess sleepiness. Okay. So the second stage is after the first birth, few days or few months are over, if there is hypothyroidism, we may see there is delayed milestones in physical development. Okay, you know that we have to observe for the proper milestones in the baby, like what time there is head holding, what time they have a social smile, when do they turn over, and so on. Okay, we are not going to discuss the milestones. So what are the milestones which are delayed, which could be delayed is, first one is delay in closure of fontanelle. Okay, what is this fontanelle? You know, the cranium, skull bones are open when the baby is born. Okay, over a few months, the all these skull bones are closed. Okay, where there is gap between those skull bones, we use the word fontanelle. These will have to, the pediatrician will regularly check that whether they are closing normally or not. So delay in closure of fontanelle, delay in eruption of teeth, delay in pain, delay in speech, and delay in holding up of head. Okay, head holding. So any delay in any of the milestones, physical milestones, or even social and mental milestones, you have to uh, sus- suspect hypothyroidism or cretinism and get it evaluated. So this is how a baby, there is no head holding, there is this is almost a year-old baby, which has not appropriate growth has not happened. There is a pot belly and all those things. Okay, we will learn about what are the other features in the next slide. Okay, so this is how it's just lying there, uh, and the growth is not appropriate. So the last third stage is full-fledged cretinism, where we can observe all the other features. Now let's look at the features of cretinism. So let's just have a look here once and then we will go to the text. Can you see that the hairs are sparse? The baby looks somewhat infantile features. This is of 1-year-old child, but it is very infantile features are there for a 1-year-old baby. There is a protruded tongue. The nose is broad. The eyes are little far away. There is more space there. Okay, and for its age, its height is small. It's a dwarf, and there is a pot belly not clearly seen here, but we will see it in the next diagram. Okay, with its little features. Okay, we will see this clinical feature. Facial features. Due to lack of growth promoting and differentiating effect, there are infantile features. Okay, it looks more babyish. There is periorbital puffiness, broad and flat nose, eyes are widely placed, tongue is large and protruding. So these are all the facial features found in cretinism. Next, other features are pot belly. There can be an umbilical hernia and sparse hair. So this you can see. So you can see this is he is not grown up properly. He's a dwarf. there is a pot belly, there is a small umbilical hernia there, very less hair, stature dwarf because less protein synthesis is happening, retardation of growth of epiphyseal end plates, so linear growth is less. In addition to growth hormone, thyroid hormone also plays a role in growth of the physical growth of the person. Okay, so here we have a dwarf. You can compare a pituitary dwarf with a cretin dwarf. That would be your assignment that you need to do. You compare a pituitary dwarf with a cretin dwarf, what is there and what is not there. To begin with, I can tell one difference is in a pituitary dwarf, there will be no mental retardation. Okay. Whereas in a cretin dwarf, there is mental retardation. And reproductive problems are also not there in the pituitary dwarf, whereas it is found in the cretin dwarf. Okay. So you have to do those differences on your own once you finish with this. So next, mental retardation. As I was telling, there is mental retardation. The IQ is very low. Sexual differentiation does not happen. It is infantile. There is hypogonadism. Teeth are also malformed. Okay. So with these two diagrams, I hope you can recall and remember what are the features of cretinism. Coming to the treatment, of course, thyroid hormone has to be replaced, that is levothyroxine. But one thing is, before the onset of permanent changes, early diagnosis, early treatment is essential. Once the permanent changes occur, it is impossible to reverse those changes. So early intervention should be made. A neonatal screening has to be done and to prevent all causes of mental retardation, one of them being cretinism. And the simple thing can be iodine deficiency in a mother. So all this has to be avoided, prevented for cretinism to occur. So that was about the hypothyroidism. Now moving on to hyperthyroidism. There are two types, primary and secondary hyperthyroidism. Okay. Again, the name we have understood now clearly what we mean by primary and secondary. So primary hyperthyroidism is the excess T3, T4 is formed. The problem lies in the thyroid gland itself. Secondary hyperthyroidism, excess stimulation is there to the thyroid gland by maybe presence of excess TSH. That's why there is excess T3, T4 that is formed. Okay. So primary hyperthyroidism causes can be hyperactivity of the gland. There may be a thyroid tumor. Okay. There is a long-acting thyroid stimulator. Okay. Like the TSH. The TSH, instead of being normally, it will act for certain duration of period and then it will be removed. But there may be a long-acting thyroid stimulator that also can cause hyperthyroidism. Coming to secondary hyperthyroidism, it is due to increased secretion of TSH from pituitary. Okay. So next we will be discussing about Graves' disease or thyrotoxicosis. Note that severe form of hyperthyroidism with toxic effects is called as thyrotoxicosis or Graves' disease. So now we will learn little in detail about what is thyrotoxicosis and Graves' disease. Just a sprinkler to know the important things. Graves' disease is number one cause of hyperthyroidism. Among all the other causes, Graves' disease is number one cause for hyperthyroidism. The peak age of diagnosis is between 40 to 60. Some places it is also mentioned as 30 to 50, and some places as 40 to 60. Graves' disease is 7 to 8 times more likely to affect a woman than men. Okay, then this it affects 3% of the population. I think it does not. It is not for the Indian population. It is for the US population. So next, move on to the details of hyperthyroidism or exophthalmic goiter, the Graves' disease. Okay. So it is defined as hypermetabolic state occurring due to excess thyroid hormones. Okay, hypermetabolic state due to excess thyroid hormones. Age maybe 30 to 50 years, it is more common. The clinical features, most important one is the exophthalmos or protrusion of eyeballs. Let's see. Yes, this is a typical picture of a woman. So the women are more affected, and this is a picture of the exophthalmic goiter. So you observe her eyeballs. It's appearing as though they are protruding out, staring look. Okay, a staring look is created because the eyes are protruded. Now let's see why the eyes are protruded. In the retrobulbar region, that is behind the eyes, there is proliferation of fibroblasts. Lot of glycosaminoglycans are retained when it draws water, and hence all these substances that are placed behind the eyeballs push the eyes forward. Okay, this causes this exophthalmos protrusion of eyeball, the staring look. In addition, this also causes weakening of the extraocular muscles. Okay, remember there are extraocular muscles surrounding this here inside, which will help in the movement of the eyeballs. So all these are weakened, and there is retraction of the upper eyelid. In addition, the upper eyelid is going up. Okay, so these all this together brings out this kind of look in Graves' disease or exophthalmic goiter. Coming to the other features, there is intolerance to heat. So thyroid hormone excess, more heat generation, hence they have intolerance to heat. Already there is a lot of thermogenesis. Weight loss due to depletion of fats, and energy loss, high BMR, is also causing weight loss. Mental condition, the person is somewhat restless, emotional, anxious, and irritable. Okay, so this is his mental condition. There he was very slow when there was no thyroid hormones. Here it's exactly opposite. The reflex time. So when we elicit any reflex, it is shortened, very quick, brisk reflexes we get. Then when we ask the person to extend his hand, there can be seen fine tremors can be seen. Okay. So fine tremors means they are very minor tremors, small. Fourth tremors are the hand is moving very vigorously. Okay. So these are the features of the thyrotoxicosis. On the cardiovascular system, we can find that the heart rate is increased. There is also increase in the systolic blood pressure and cardiac output, and hence there is hypertension. Okay. As I was telling you, sleeping pulse rate, if it is elevated, it is a sign of hyperthyroidism. Skin is soft, moist, and warm. It is very thin due to vasodilation and increase in the sweat secretion. Okay, exactly opposite. There it was coarse, rough, thick. Here it is soft, moist, thin, and warm. Hyperglycemia. Okay, so here when excess is there, there is hyperglycemia due to diabetogenic effect of thyroid hormones plus glycogenolytic effect of catecholamines. As I was telling you, catecholamines are hyperglycemic. Okay, and they work only in presence of thyroid hormones. So both together cause hyperglycemia. There is where cholesterol levels are very low. Okay, so cholesterol levels are low. So again, one more picture. Please try to draw these diagrams, which will help you to remember the things. So on the face, we have exophthalmos. There is a goiter, may or may not be there, but normally there is excess sweating. There may be restless, irritable, emotional, causing headache. There is weight loss, nervousness, emotional instability, all this. Then arrhythmias can be there, and there can be tachycardia. There is diarrhea, increased motility is there, so it can cause diarrhea. And Coming to the reproductive system, there is oligomenorrhea. Okay, there is decreased this one and fine tremor of the hands. And here also, even with the excess thyroid hormone, there is muscle weakness here because proteins are degraded, and because of the loss of protein, there is muscle weakness. These are the features of thyrotoxicosis. Treatment is medical line of treatment is through anti-thyroid drugs. So the word anti-thyroid drugs include those drugs which act on one or the other level of synthesis of thyroid hormones and block the synthesis of thyroid hormones. Let's see the list first, then we will go to the diagram and understand. Okay, so please recall here that the first step in the synthesis was iodide trapping. So we have thiocyanates. By competitive inhibition, they inhibit iodide trapping. Okay, with thiocyanates drugs, first one. Second is metimazole, propyl thiouracil, carbimazole. All this inhibits synthesis of T3 and T4 by inhibiting iodination. Remember, there is a step where iodine has to be incorporated into thyroglobulin, and also DIT and MIT, the two molecules of DIT, diiodothyronine, the coupling reactions are there. All this are inhibited by these three drugs. Okay, iodination and coupling reactions. Next, iodine in large doses are also inhibiting the T3, T4 cleavage and proteolysis. Lastly, once T3, T4 are already formed, you know T4 is the prohormone, more of T4 is there, and but the active hormone is T3. If we prevent T4 from converting from T4 to T3, then also we can block the actions of the hormone. So we have certain drugs which can inhibit conversion of T4 to T3, example, beta blockers. So this is the anti-thyroid drugs. These are the locations where they are active. So in the synthesis of thyroid hormone, first iodide has to be transported through NIS, sodium iodide transporter, into the thyroid cell, follicular cell. Then it has to be converted into iodine. Then, of course, in the colloid, then it has to undergo iodination with thyroglobulin to form monoiodothyronine and diiodothyronine. Then they have to couple each other to form T3, T4 hormones. Okay, so this is the steps. So where all they can block, first block can occur in trapping iodide. Okay, which are the drugs that help? Thiocyanate, perchlorate. Two things, if you remember, it's sufficient. Thiocyanate and perchlorate block iodide uptake. Okay, second drugs, propyl thiouracil and metimazole, they prevent iodination of thyroglobulin and coupling of DIT and MIT. Okay, so this at this level they are affecting. Then iodides, they prevent the proteolysis. That is, the T3, T4 is present along with the colloid that has to be removed out. So the iodides act at this level and prevent the proteolysis. Okay. The fourth level, once T3, T4 is released into the peripheral tissues, T4 has to be, the large amount of T4 has to be converted into T3 to has its effect. So this effect can be prevented by beta blockers and corticosteroids mainly. If you remember these two, it would be suffice. It will suffice. So beta blockers and corticosteroids. Among the beta blockers, the most prominent one is the propranolol, which we use. Okay, so many drugs can be used to reduce the T3, T4 formation. Hence, they are called as the anti-thyroid drugs. So the next drug is, okay, we have also included peripheral conversion for avoiding beta adrenoreceptor antagonist, the same as the beta blocker I was telling, propranolol. Then radioactive iodine can also be used. It helps in partial destruction of the gland. If we overdo this, the patient may become hypothyroid. Okay, it has to be done very carefully. Then, if medical line of treatment doesn't work, surgical treatment is subtotal thyroidectomy to reduce the secretions. Normally, the person has to be made euthyroid. Afterwards, only surgery is done. When the person is hyperthyroid, no surgery will be done. Okay. First, medical line of treatment is done, then subtotal thyroidectomy to reduce the secretions, or total thyroidectomy with replacement therapy. Any of the two can be done. So this is about the hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism. So this is this man here, hypothyroidism, uh, feeling very cold, cold intolerance, wearing lots of mufflers and everything, obese, uh, very sleepy, tired, lethargic. Then the voice is hoarseness is there. Then subnormal temperature, bradycardia, weight gain, thick skin, all this. There is constipation, there is depression, and the person gains weight, loses hair, okay, lethargic, anorexic, doesn't feel hungry, okay. So these are all the features of hypothyroidism. Then hyperthyroidism, feeling very hot, heat intolerance is with the fan here, you can see very thin hairs, intolerance to heat, bulging eyeballs. Can you see them? They're all popping out. There is an enlarged thyroid. He's become very lost weight. There is weight loss. There is increase in the blood pressure. There is tachycardia. Then there may be tremors. There is diarrhea and menstrual changes, and there can be edema. Okay. So these are the hyperthyroidism features, just to um, see an overview. So in today's class, we have completed goiter, the physiological places, the clinical features, all that related to goiter, myxedema, then cretinism, and hyperthyroidism. We have also learned in detail about the antithyroid drugs and the site of their action. So please make a, so today's assignment would be to make a comparative uh, comparison between the pituitary dwarf and the cretin dwarf. And don't forget to make the master chart of all the hormones so that you can recall entire endocrine very easily. So that's it for today's class. Thank you.